Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you're viewing and listening to this from. And welcome to our session for Community College International Educators. Delighted to be with you today. My name is Christopher Chris Johnson, and I have the great pleasure of serving as Director of Graduate and International Recruitment and International Partners here at Arizona State University. And I'm very pleased to be joined by my colleague and collaborator, Ms. Anique Petit.
Hey, good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Anique. I'm a Senior Director within the Academic Alliances Office here at ASU, and our role is to engage and manage relationships with community colleges in Arizona and across the nation. So thank you so much for joining us.
All right, let's go to the next slide. So for this session, we're going to be providing some high-level information about ASU, transfer students, specifically international transfer students, resources, and much more. We're going to leave lots of time for questions at the end of our session. So we'll put those in the Q&A so that we can get to those. But let's start off with a quick little video if we can. All right, happy little video. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide if we can. All right. So a few things that we want to keep in mind. We know your students have many choices. Some of them are looking at ASU, some of them are looking at other universities. We want to give you a few reasons why we think that your students would thrive and excel at ASU. Certainly, you saw from the video, top rank in a number of areas, including innovation, global impact, sustainability, top rack programs in engineering and business, the arts, and many, many more. But I also want to talk about some of the great things that ASU does to support the students, to make them feel welcome, included, engaged, and then to prepare them for brilliant careers as they move on. Down in the bottom row of the slide you're looking at, actually, things move so fast at ASU. Those numbers are already out of date. We have 14,500 international students right now from 158 countries. So definitely on the march and growing. Okay. So I want to touch just a little bit about employability, right? This is the number one question that I certainly get in our work when we're talking to students about the investment calculus of coming to the US or any other country for a college degree. And I want to just flag a couple of these in the top row especially. So Wall Street Journal, many of you are familiar with, if I can use this word, the Bible of Wall Street, right? The leading newspaper for business folks in New York and around the world. Forbes is more of a weekly, monthly publication. And then, of course, Times Higher Education, which many of us are familiar with and use for different purposes. All of those have ASU in a top 10, top 15 kind of position. And that's important because, you know, having a degree is great as they go into the workforce. If you don't have the degree, you may not be as strong of a candidate. But having a degree from ASU and that global recognition and that global brand equity is an essential part of the success that we have in placing students into brilliant jobs and careers in which they can thrive. So that's one of the first points that I wanted to lead with. Now let's go to the next slide. I also want to talk about the fact that ASU is not one thing, right? ASU is a bit like the ice cream bar. We have the vanilla, we have the chocolate. ASU has 5 campuses in Arizona alone and other campuses elsewhere in the country. Depending on the program and depending on the kind of the students want, we can offer those kinds of opportunities. Certainly, many are familiar with Tempe, our largest campus. It's the most traditional campus in that it's got the big stadium and it's got the football team and all of those kinds of things. And for the students who want programs in any number of fields, Tempe's a great place to be. But we know that students also are looking for different things. I know students may be looking for a little bit smaller of a feel, a little bit more of a community college kind of experience, you know, where you know people and there's a sense of community. Well, we offer that at our West and our Poly campuses, which have around 5,000 students each. We also know that there are students who are very price sensitive. They have very tight budgets. Our Lake Havasu campus offers a very affordable option, comparable with the price point at most community colleges for those students where the finances are perhaps their paramount consideration. So let's go to the next slide. I want to introduce our team that work with international transfer students. Myself, you've met. I'm joined by an associate director, Mr. Chester Henderson, who's our lead for international transfer students. And then we have two folks on the recruitment side, my colleague Demir, who's fairly new to the team, primarily tasked with supporting all of your wonderful transfer students. And my colleague Naira Dixon also works with transfer students and supports some of our specialty populations. So that's kind of our team. Just want to give you a sense of the scale at ASU and kind of how we work with things. And I've just put our funnel on there to get you a sense. Our final number for fall 23 was about 207. So the numbers changed a little bit from when this slide was produced. But you can see we started with a little under 2,000 applications. About half of those got completed, and then we admitted a good number. I did want to bring to your attention that starting in spring 24, transfer students will need to pay an enrollment deposit for ASU. So on the first year side, we've had that for many, many years. We're going to be bringing that in for transfer students as well as a way to just ensure that we're supporting the students who really are planning to come and that we're clear about who's coming so that we can provide them that exceptional service and support so they have a wonderful experience during their time with us at ASU. All right, the next slide I'm really excited about. This is kind of a breakdown of our top sending markets, if I can put it that way. The largest grouping, 30%, are all of the above, if you can call it that, our rest of the world category. That's our single largest group. But then you can see we get significant numbers of students from Saudi Arabia, India, China, Taiwan, Korea, Kuwait, and Vietnam as well. But as I said at the outset, ASU has international students from 158 countries. So very likely that we have strong representation of the countries and the communities that your students are coming from as well. And then just some fun data points that I want to share. The first one, transfer students represented about 5% of all of our new international students. So that's grad, undergrad, first year. And our international transfer students are about 5% of our total transfer enrollment as well. So just to kind of give you a flavor of that. But I think this third bullet might be the one that might pique your interest as advisors, those of you who work directly with students. So ASU offers transfer scholarships for international transfer students, and those range between $3,000 to $10,000 their GPA and some other criteria. At our Havasu campus, the amounts are slightly smaller because the tuition is slightly smaller, but there are now transfer scholarships for that campus as well. But what I'm really excited about is that ASU is making an institutional priority that we want to diversify and grow our wonderful student opportunities at our West and our Poly campuses, which ironically are very closely located to community colleges. In fact, our Poly campus shares a physical space with a community college. So there's a great deal of awareness and support and connectivity for transfer students that are going to those campuses. In recognition of that, again, based on GPA and overall profile, students who consider programs at either the West or the Poly campus can potentially be eligible for an additional $3,000 per year, renewable for 2 years, on top of the $3,000 to $10,000 amount. So your very best students could potentially be looking at a $14,000 scholarship if the program they want is located at the West or our Poly campus. The last point that I want to share, and I just want to clarify, so in many institutions, there are caps. They can only award a certain number of awards. So there are deadlines that if you miss that deadline, you're out of luck. We know transfer students are finalizing their decisions much later in the process than first year students. In some cases, just a few days before the classes start. We know this and we understand this and we love it. And we're happy for it. So to the point I'm trying to make is that even for your students who are finalizing their choices very late, they're not missing out. They're still going to be considered at the same level. Now, want to be clear, I'm only talking about international transfer students. So, students on an F or J student visa. Domestic transfer students in other visa categories fall under different rules and different considerations. But this is for your F and J international transfer students. All right. So let's talk a little bit about our Weston and Poly campus. Those of you who are in Arizona know that the Phoenix metro area is very large and very spread out. And so West Campus really serves what we call the West Valley, and the Poly campus really serves our East Valley. And then our downtown and Tempe campuses are much more centrally located. Polytechnic, as you can imagine, lots of science, lots of engineering, lots of professional programs like air traffic management, flight, aeronautical engineering, unmanned aerial vehicles, all of those kinds of things. West has more of the liberal arts kinds of programs, sciences, business, and now, very excited, we're bringing engineering to the West Campus. So this fall, our first program will be engineering studies, and shortly followed by several other programs that I'm not at liberty to say right now, but I promise you they are some of the most popular engineering disciplines for international students. So if a student is looking for one of those programs and they're wondering, well, should I go to Tempe? Where should I go? Great thing is many of the programs are offered at multiple campuses. So that choose your adventure, choose your campus fit kind of experience really plays into that. You want the big campus? That's wonderful. You want something a little bit more intimate and manageable? We've got that too. And it's all ASU and all with that #1 in innovation brand. All right, let's go on. The West Campus, mentioned yes in engineering science. They've never had engineering out there. We do have applied computing for students who want to go more in that direction. But the one I want to really flag for you is our School of Interdisciplinary Forensics. So we've had programs in forensic science. So there's a program there that studies the decomposition of cadavers in the Sonoran Desert and uses that in sort of very CSI crime solving kinds of ways. But we also have things like cybersecurity and forensic psychology, this getting into, the TV shows, the criminal analyst kind of thing. But it also includes financial forensics and cybersecurity and those kinds of things. All of that will be under one roof now within the School of Interdisciplinary Forensics. So folks who are really interested in the cybersecurity or, financial fraud kinds of things, they can study that all under one roof. Really cool. One of the very first programs of its kind in the US. All right, let's go on to the next slide. And then a little bit about the Polytechnic campus. Those of you who may not be familiar with Arizona, the Polytechnic campus I mentioned is co-located with a community college. It's also co-located with a busy commercial airport at which many of the aviation aeronautical vendors have hangars and facilities, and there's a thriving manufacturing, high-end kinds of things, electric cars, batteries are all building in that area. That campus really is strong in the sciences, engineering, but they have the other things like a psychology and other disciplines for students who might want to double major or might want to do something in a science field, but also wants to pursue something more on the arts side. And a student can do that at ASU at the Poly campus as well as the West Campus. All right, let's go on. Just want to give some quick taste of some cool things that students get to do. So imagine VR, right? We've all seen VR goggles. Now imagine that as a pedagogical tool teaching classes. Pause for a second there. So we're delivering content in VR, but it's more than VR. It's augmented reality with haptic suits and responsive gloves and, feeling the body pressure and movement and things like that in the floor. One of the first courses that's taking advantage of this is a biology class. And what they developed, and this is a partnership between ASU and Dreamscape, which is basically a Hollywood studio, they developed something called the Alien Zoo. So students go into the Alien Zoo environment and then they get to dissect alien wildlife or alien animals. Now, why is that important? Well, students of today, they like that connected, engaged VR kind of learning experience. And, the proof is in the pudding. The students who are in that mode of learning tend to do better than their traditional peers in the classroom. But what's also really cool about this technology is that it's a great equalizer. Now, what I mean by that is whether your students are coming from very rigorous, very well-funded, highly supported academic backgrounds, prior to joining your campuses. Or maybe they came from a rural school, which had much less resources and much less training. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. Everybody is seeing the Alien Zoo for the first time. So everyone is equal. And that speaks to not only our pedagogical goals of using technology and using scale, but also our fundamental ethos of inclusion and measuring ourselves by who we include and how they succeed. Dreamscape Learn is one of those ways we advance those values. All right, I'm doing a lot of talking and I have a couple more slides to do. How to get started. Most of your students may have a sense of I'm between this degree and that degree. And, when we tell them that ASU has close to 400 undergraduate degrees, there's often a moment of panic in their eyes. How do I choose? Well, we've built these wonderful tools. Degree Search tells you all about it, the requirements, the courses, possible careers, possible salaries. But for students who are a little bit earlier in the process, we have the Me3 quiz game. It's a simple 60-picture matching game, and it comes out with some ideas for career choices that seem to match up with your interests. And then you can plug that in with campus fit. What kind of a journey do I want? What kind of an experience do I want? Based on what I saw in terms of what might be good possible career goals. You don't have to have a login or credentials. It doesn't cost anything. Really urge advisors to share these tools with their students. Hopefully they will lead them to ASU, right? We're obviously paid by ASU, but they can be really helpful tools in your advising practice to support your students in their discernment journey. All right, a couple more things. I mentioned students are extremely well supported at ASU. And part of our size gives us scale to really be able to lean into high-tech solutions that support high-touch results. Here's just a few of the examples in terms of tutoring and mentoring, e-advisor, peer coaching, much, much more. We're very proud of 24/7, 365 counseling, which can be conducted in one of about 60 languages. So if a student is, in distress, needs to talk to someone, and, those of you who speak multiple languages, in moments of high stress, you fall back on your first language or your mother tongue. This system is set up with counselors who speak those languages, who can really meet the students where they are in a moment of need. That's something that very few universities in the US can offer. So that's just another example of supports we can provide. All right, let's go on. I just want to spotlight a couple of supports specifically for international students. Obviously, we have the International Students at Scholar Center, which is the visa part. They do the I-20s, but they do so much more in terms of programming and onboarding and supporting international student clubs. One of my slides earlier mentioned that we have over 1,000 student clubs and organizations, whether it's an Indian student or a Chinese student or a Saudi student or African students or Nigerian students. We have so many of these clubs, all supported by our International Students at Scholar Center. But we also have a wider group, our International Student Engagement, which is focused on the totality of the student experience. So it's health, well-being, building community, building connections, laying the groundwork for a thriving career. And then in the top left corner, of course, our career services for international students, because of course, most of them are planning on staying and working and getting jobs. And you saw the statistics at the outset of how highly ranked the business community feels about an ASU degree. These are some of the ways we deliver that experience and execute it. The last thing I just want to mention in terms of innovation, we've invested very heavily in our IT and AI to support the student journey. And I just want to flag one area on the right quadrant there, top right quadrant, our integrated case management. Now, all of us as advisors are involved in case management in some way or form, right? Whether it's monitoring midterm progress reports or getting early alerts from professors or things like that. We've taken it to a whole new level. We have all of those things, but we have a back-end AI that's monitoring the progress of the students, linking with academic data, and coming up with algorithms that say, you know what, Chris is looking like he's missed some classes or he didn't do well on his first test. Let's proactively get out in front of this and connect with him at the third week of the semester rather than in the 13th week. Because in the third week, we can do things. You can invest tutoring, we can do mentoring, we can find support services if there are learning accommodations that haven't come to the fore. There are things we can do. Week 13, we're hanging on for dear life at that point, and the cake is largely baked. And that's just one small example of the kinds of ways that we use our scale to support and advance what we do and the outcomes for our international transfer students. All right, I know I'm running short of time, so I'm going to go through this very quickly. This is our matrix of how we consider a transfer student, how many credits they have. Do we consider them under first-year requirements, transfer requirements? Do we need a combination of both? In this slide, this information is available through our website. Let's go on to the next one. Money, 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 money. Everybody wants to know how much it's going to cost. Can I get financial aid? All of those kinds of things. So we have our tuition estimator, which lets you plug in the campus, the program, the year that you are in school, and it will give you a pretty accurate idea of what you're going to be looking at for fees. Obviously, FAFSA is not as applicable for international students. Our scholarship portal. So in addition to those scholarships I talked about at the outset, we have college and departmental scholarships as well that are stackable on top of these other wonderful awards. And so students can sign into that portal, and from one place, they can search for scholarships that meet their profile of grades, of major, of campus, of background. And through that portal, it's one application to be considered for multiple scholarships. Very simple. Student employment, many transfer students are looking for jobs. We hire many hundreds and even thousands of international students to work on campus. We have a very centralized way of students being able to apply for all of those. So that's another great tool and resource. Finally, for my part of the presentation, the next slide, please. This is something super cool that is available to international transfer students. And what it's designed to do is to build scholarships through positive behavior reinforcement. So as you can see, if your students sign up for a MyPath to ASU, they can get a $100 micro scholarship towards their account. And if they do a campus tour and many other kinds of things, all of that builds on to increase the potential funding for those transfer students. And these have been available to our domestic transfer students for many years. This is relatively more recent that they're available to international transfer students as well. So wonderful ways that we support you and your international transfer students. And I'm looking forward to your questions at the end of the session, and I'll hand it over to the fabulous Anik Petit.
Thank you so much, Chris. So I'm going to talk a little bit about academic alliances. This is a department that is not every university has. We exist to assist community colleges, and that's why I love my job. I oversee the engagement team, which means we're here to train you, to put together comms for you, communications for you, and do anything it is that you need us to do. Maybe it's to connect faculty to faculty. Maybe it's to organize grants. We do a little bit of everything. So this is our team, and the fantastic 4 people you see at the bottom of the screen there are our transfer student ambassadors, and I'll talk about them a little bit more as I continue. And what we really do, our main goal given to us by Dr. Crow, our president, is to, quote, solve the national transfer problem, unquote, which I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, are already aware of. And basically that is that many students who study at community colleges begin with the intention of transferring for a bachelor's degree at some point. Many of them don't. And the biggest reason for this, of course, is because they are not able to transfer their credits into the university. Their work, their time, their money is not recognized at the university level. And our transfer tools, which I'll be introducing to you, are aimed to solve that. We also know that best practices point towards the fact that students who complete their associate degree are much more likely to transfer and attain that bachelor's degree. And so that is how our transfer tools are built out. And we also know that, of course, the more credits they can transfer, the more they are likely to transfer and to graduate and complete those educational goals. So we are doing that by partnering with community colleges across the nation. This gives you an idea of where our partnerships lie right now. You can see many are in Arizona, many are in California, and across the nation as well, to help to sort of spread the transfer love, so to speak, because our tools are quite unique, and I'll be sharing those with you in a moment. Our partnerships that we have, which many of you online today, we're already partnered with your institution, which is really exciting. And what that means is that we give ongoing support to you. I know, having worked at community colleges for over 16 years, I know that we were always approached by universities to articulate, and then you don't hear much from them. That is not the modus operandum of ASU. We give ongoing support, such as this webinar that you're joining us today, and I'll point out some other opportunities that we connect with you on an ongoing basis. We're very transfer focused. Close to half of all students, international and domestic, that study at ASU started off as a transfer student. So that is why we work really hard across the board to make sure that we are providing the supports that these students need. I like to show this slide just to point out that this shows you basically when the majority of students do transfer into ASU. And you can see the majority is in the junior year, which means they are staying with you all, which is our goal. That was the student's goal before coming into us. So let's take a quick moment here to hear from an international student that did transfer into ASU.
My name is Paola Finigues. I transferred from Cochise College in Douglas, Arizona, and I transferred to ASU into the biomedical engineering program. I chose ASU because the biomedical engineering program was a great interest to me. I liked the curriculum and the classes it offered, and it also offered great scholarships opportunities that met my needs. Since I'm an international student, I wanted a school that would take all the scholarships I had been awarded, and that was ASU. I was able to use the resources ASU offered, such as My Path to ASU, where I could see what classes would be transferring and what I needed to complete my degree. Everything worked out because I had all the help I needed. And of course, like these great tools that ASU offers that just walk you through the process and what the classes you need and what matches with what you've already taken at your community college, and that really helps.
All right, so it is the My Path to ASU tool that I will be sharing with you and taking a bit of a deeper dive to introduce you to that if you're not already familiar with that tool. My Path to ASU and our transfer guide and all of our transfer tools are meant to assist students to save time and money by planning time to degree completion, as well as giving them customized course-by-course pathways so they can see exactly what courses will transfer from your institutions into ASU. You have a repository of over 3 million articulated courses from community colleges across the nation, whether or not we're partnered with those institutions. And you can have a sneak peek of that just yourselves. Their pathways allow them to track their progress and applicability to say, okay, I've completed this, I'll do this in the next semester and so forth. And they also receive personalized communications from the college of interest that they have chosen, the ASU college, meaning if they're interested in engineering, they will hear specifically from engineering throughout their journey at your institutions. It will give them access to ASU's transfer coordinators and pre-enrollment services, of course, and it will also give them guaranteed admission into their major of choice if all requirements are satisfied. So we did a deep dive into the data of My Path to ASU to see, okay, is it making a difference? And we found that yes, it is helping students participate in upward transfer, which is their goal many of the times. So we know that 95% of pathway learners who applied to ASU applied within 2.5 years of signing their agreement, which means they're staying with you. They're completing with you. Many are completing with you before coming on to us, which is great. That's how we built out the pathways. We know that 48% of My Path to ASU community college students apply to ASU. So they're getting over that hump of, okay, completing most of their courses and then applying to come into ASU. 87% of those admitted in person and 85% of online pathway students enroll at ASU. And we know that more students that are on pathways come to ASU than students that are not on pathways. So they do make a difference. So with that, let me take a little bit of a dive into My Path to ASU to show you the tool. So the first little short video I'll show you is a way for advisors, for those working with students, to play with the tool. Nobody needs to sign up for a pathway in order to play with the tool to see, oh, how would this transfer in? So let me show that to you now. You'll notice, of course, they showed an online pathway, which wouldn't quite work for international students, but it works for all pathways, most in person, right? We have many in-person students, and our pathways work for any kind of modality that students choose to come to ASU. So this shows you just a better image of what those steps look like. So they would put in the school and then fill out the form as if they were joining any sort of a membership sort of account. The only thing that's different, of course, is that students need to sign off on FERPA because we are sharing academic information on that student between the two institutions. And if they decide to go ahead and sign up for a My Path to ASU, I can show you what it looks like after they have. All right, so that is the tool. And what I'd like to just point out very quickly to you again is in this column, you see the course to transfer. So these would be the courses from your institutions. And then how it would transfer into ASU, you see it in the list of the ASU courses over on the left. And the other helpful things in this is the transfer guide itself. So we're in My Path to ASU here. You can also do course searches for one-on-one course searches to see how that might transfer in. You can also see how certain exams would transfer into ASU, such as CLEP, and so forth, and other student resources available to students within their own transfer guide. That brings me to the end of the My Path to ASU example. I did want to point out some events we have coming up for everyone, especially our partners. We have National Transfer Week coming up October 16th to the 20th, and we'll input that link for you. It's a week-long seminars, basically sessions for those that work for transfer students across the board. And so lots of really great information there during that week for you all to check out if you're not too busy with your own Transfer Week events going on. And some other events we have going out through the year. This is a new series that we've introduced called College Connections, where we bring the ASU colleges to you. The one coming up during Transfer Week is a special one we're trying out, where we are doing it not by college, but by degree and major. So psychology is offered in many of the ASU colleges. We brought them all together for you so that you can hear about all of the different degrees and how they might apply to your transfer students should they be interested, including different careers available to them with a bachelor's in psychology from within those colleges themselves. So we're excited about that one, and lots of other ones coming up, and we can share that link with you as well. We have some other tools available to you. We have lots of resources on our webpage. I wanted to point out this video, for example, that we're recording right now will be up on our page as a resource for the future and things of that nature. And just wanted to point out our fantastic transfer student ambassadors. Our TSAs work with academic alliances, and their role is to liaise with potential transfer students. If they have student-to-student questions, their peers that they can ask all kinds of questions they wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable maybe talking to an advisor, or they act as a signpost to the appropriate professional at ASU with whom they can speak. So they're fantastic. Very often our TSAs are international students, which we absolutely love having them on our team. And so I would encourage you to encourage your students to connect with our TSAs should they be so inclined. They also have their own webinars that they run on Friday a month that your students can register for you as well. So that comes to the conclusion of our formal presentation for this webinar. We'd love to answer any questions for you, should you have any. We have our chat open and are happy to answer any questions you may have. I don't see anything in the Q&A, which is fine. So if anyone would like to pop any specific questions into the chat regarding international admissions, regarding academic alliances, we are here to answer those questions. So why don't we give it a moment to see if anyone has any questions for us, Chris, and anything to add on your end as we await any questions that folks may have.
You know, the only thing that I'll say is that one of the things I'm particularly proud of at ASU is the level of support that we offer to all of our students, but especially transfer students. Not, it's never 100%. There's always room for improvement. We're always looking to get better. But in my experience, having worked at many colleges and universities, the level of support that we provide is frankly unmatched at other colleges and universities. And all of that by way saying that, as you're working with your students and they're deciding where they are going to go to continue their studies, know that ASU not only has great support and great infrastructure, we also have close to 400 programs of study across 5 campuses. It's just a package that's pretty attractive and hard to beat anywhere else.
Yeah, and I would add to that too, that the transfer resources available through ASU really also are unmatched nationally. My Path to ASU is a homegrown program that ASU built out and created and has built upon and now has gone to a national level with it. So it's something that I really appreciate. Having worked at community colleges for many years, I know how difficult it can be for students to figure out what will transfer, because essentially transfer students want to know 3 things essentially. How long will it take me to get my bachelor's? How much will it cost? And how many credits can I transfer? So hopefully we've provided those resources for you today to help your students answer those questions and to assist your students the best that you can. And we are always here to answer questions as well. I'll go ahead and put my email into the chat. Should anyone want to contact me directly, please feel free to do so. And I don't think I think, Chris, we did a fantastic job. We answered everyone's questions in our slides, and nobody has any questions, which is great and fine. Please do contact us in the future if you do have any questions, if you think of things along the way, and best wishes to you and to your students. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.